Hey guys, it's Mo from Mo in the Deep End, and I know this is a little bit different. Look, this is a work in progress. I am trying all the new technologies, but this will be the first sort of story time pre-trial for rewatch trials that I kind of want to do this year. I have a couple. Some are, short ones that I think, we all know, and then some are ones that I think are going to be a little more difficult because they are kid ones, but they do have interesting, I think, legal stuff in the trials. But I did wanna kind of do pre-trial story time board kinda things, just so you guys would know what's going on, and kid trials are hard. So if you take one look at the storyboard and you're like, "Nerp," you know, "Kid things are not for me," look, I completely get it. Your mental health is so much more important than, watching viewer hours. Total hard pass for you. If this is a hard pass case for you, don't worry, I will not be offended. Again, wear gloves when you dye your hair, or you will look like you were just badness. Anywho, let's get to the story time. I am, for the first time ever, using or attempting to use an online whiteboard. So pray for us now at the hour of my interface because y'all know I am like your great Aunt Edith with a jitterbug as far as technology goes. So this will be all of the interesting for us as we try this. Maybe, possibly, we will pray. Okay, so at the bottom of all of this is baby Dylan Groves, and he was born January 10th, 2019. And as far as officials can tell, he was taken from this world sometime in late March, by the people or the person that should have protected him most in this world, 2019. So let's get to those people and the story of baby Dylan Groves. Whoop. Now, these two, what in the Walmart characters we have here, and I have full on put on my petty patch. These two have been adjudicated guilty. I do not have to be nice to them, nor will I be nice to them. They should have been thrown to Snake Island. I do not give two damns about it. But this case occurred in Ohio, and we are going to catch up with, well, we're going to call them biological housing units, not parents, but that's what we're going to call them. Jessica and Daniel Groves. Jessica, at the time of the case and when Dylan was born, was 39 and struggling with quite a big substance abuse problem. She used to be a nurse. Not much is Look, I didn't dig into why she became an addict, nor do I really give two craps after what she did. So, ma'am, whatever happened to you, I don't really care. Daniel used to work at Rural King. As far He was 41 at the time of this case, and again, also had, gone on to have pretty serious addiction problems. Now, the area of Ohio, the southern part of Ohio, Scioto County, did have a very significant, and we will hear in their defense, a very significant sort of pill kind of mill culture, very big, opiate addiction problem. They did try to use that as mitigating factors. I give, let me see, let me try to find. Nope, can't find any dams to give about that. But, that is something that their defense brought up. So let's get to our story. The maternity ward is a place of nerves and hope and joy and fear and, breathtaking worry and just life-changing moments every day. But on January 10th, when Jessica and Daniel Groves arrived, the maternity nurses noticed that there was something really off about this couple. Jessica came in nearly fully dilated and about 3 to 4 weeks early, uh, obviously on some sort of substance. The nurses will testify that she was showing signs of being on something, but they couldn't get her to communicate that. Daniel looked very cowed. It is apparent that Jessica kind of wears the pantaloons in the relationship. So, beta, any hoozle, so Dylan comes out, uh, not really breathing very well and showing signs of addiction as well, which turn out to be confirmed with some of the blood testing they take from the placenta. He's got all sorts of stuff in his system. Now, Jessica claims when she does talk to the social worker in the hospital, after she's given birth and her son is taken to the NICU because he's, you know, early, brand new, and, suffering from withdrawal. Does Mama Jessica go down to the NICU? Does she take care of her son? Does she show any concern? Well, that would be a hell no. Does Daniel go down to look at his son in the NICU? That would also be a hell no. So what they actually intend to do is, well, they just sit in their room and kind of just, whisper to each other, but do F all for their son. This concerns the hospital staff greatly, along with, there being the, method acting in little baby Dylan's blood, and the fact that the mom shows F all concern for this baby, this precious little boy who, despite all odds and his mom's, basically poisoning his house, has come out basically for the most part with stuff that he can overcome. So he is there, and, you know, the caseworker comes in and talks to the mom, and the mom says, "Well, look, I am addicted to H," ends with Rin, and, I only took enough to stave off, the withdrawals after I found out I was pregnant, but I didn't find out I was pregnant until I was about 5 months in, allegedly. And she allegedly lied to Daniel and a lot of people about being pregnant for about 5 months. Now, I don't know kind of the whole shenanigans about all that. Now, there have been a lot of comments about how the Scioto County Family Services handled this entire case and several other cases. There were, look, pitchforks and, angry townspeople might be a mild form of the criticism that was placed after this case. And I think you'll see why after. Now, after all of this information is taken in, and, we do have both parents showing very little regard for this baby, this precious little boy, and him being born with substances in his system, the family services were going to be a-okay, number one, super duper all right, with a pinky promise, super swear, with Daniel Groves double promising that he would keep baby Dylan if he could pass a pee test, um, and he peed clean. He could keep baby Dylan at home as long as Jessica didn't live with him. Now, these two had been together for 25 years. They had a son together who was 14 at home. That will be important in a little bit, I promise. Uh, but the DS or the Department of Family Services thought that for sure these 2 would definitely stay away from each other, and she would go to all of her counseling, and he would definitely not let her come home, and he would definitely pee clean. Pinky promise. Well, the hospital said, "No, hell no, not at all. We will not release this child to Daniel Groves." So, the Scioto County DS Family Services basically reluctantly called in a foster mother. Now, this foster mother was probably the only love and kindness this precious baby boy got to experience on this earth. This mother, Andrea Bowling, was a teacher. She had had former foster care children, and let's look at the dichotomy here. The Groves maybe pass a P test, kinda, sorta. She had to have a background test, check, a home study, medical training, drug tests, psychological screenings just to be a foster mother. But we were gonna throw baby Dylan back to his, absolutely strung out parents as a newborn withdrawing. So Andrea Bowling, as she will say in her own words, because I will be doing a video after this where she writes a heartbreaking letter of a mother left behind. She gets a call, I believe, on the 12th that says, "Hey, we have a baby. Can you take him?" And she basically drops everything, tells her school, "Hey, I might be off for 2 weeks. I don't know. Um, they've got a baby." She goes into the hospital for training because babies who are withdrawing need special knowledge about, hey, they're going to cry more. These are things that might comfort them. Uh, you know, Play groups. She was getting donations from the community, like, "Here's a mamaroo, here's, a swing, here's a sling, here's baby clothes," because she didn't have anything appropriate for a teeny tiny preemie baby to go home in. And within 24 hours, this woman was ready to go, invited Dylan into her house and, sat with him. She said that, he was fussy, but he was doing a little better. You know, he he was having a bit of a hard time. He liked to be swaddled pretty tight and held on to. If you put him down, he really got pretty fussy. He was, it happens when you're withdrawing. I mean, this poor little guy was having to go through grown-up withdrawals. Now, then what happened? Well, about, let's see here, several days later, 11, 12 days into the loving care of this foster mother, the Daniel has magically been able to pee clean several times, but no one from the county social services watched him pee. So he had clean pee, but no one watched him give the sample. Now he had a 14-year-old at home. This will become important in the trial where the 14-year-old is made to testify against his dirtbag parents and says that he had to provide clean urine for both of his parents at multiple times in his life. So not only did these parents screw up this little baby, but they have been screwing up Daniel Jr.'s life for years. So 10 days into her care of little Dylan, and after several supervised visits with Jessica and Daniel Groves, in which Andrea Bowling has, quite worriedly told family services, "Hey, I believe Danielle and Jessica are on something. This is very concerning to me. I I really don't feel comfortable with your push for reunification. I really th I don't think they're holding up their end of the bargain." And she was basically told by the Department of Family Services, "You do not want to look like you are trying to keep this family apart. if you want to continue with the foster program. You know, it was kind of like, if you want to continue with this, you need to stop. So tearfully and with great fear, with, you know, that sinking gut feeling that this was not going to end well, Andrea packed up all the supplies, every single thing that had been donated to her that she could, you know, ask people, hey, can I donate this on to the birth parents? You know, she put her a Bible for Dylan to have when he was older because, you know, she had gotten so many items from the church. Her faith is part of why she became a foster parent. And, you know, and then her number in case, you know, again, babies with, you know, withdrawals need so much extra attention. And she knew how overwhelming this could be. She was like, if you need anything, please call me. So this will become integral because we'll get into the trial, but Daniel Groves never once, when, you know, he and Jessica started to feel overwhelmed, when Jessica started to rant and rave, reached out to Andrea Bowling, even though he had her number. He had DSFS's number. He had, you know, neighbors across the street. So Dylan went back to Dad's house, and Jessica was supposed to be doing drug and anger management counseling and other sort of things. And for a couple weeks, it seemed to be going okay. Dylan went to his doctor's appointment and he seemed to be gaining weight. He was about 7 pounds. That was a couple ounces more than he was when he was born. So, you know, he was on a trajectory of gaining weight. You know, it was, it seemed to be a good thing. Jessica was going to her therapy. But as the weeks progressed, Jessica stopped going to her therapy. Daniel stopped going to the doctor's appointments. And when, you know, the Department of Family Services could get to see Dylan, what she was supposed to do was take him to another room, unwrap him, and make sure that he was fine. Look for bruises, look for any injuries, make sure that he wasn't being abused. Now, when she would go and do these visits, Jessica would hold Dylan very tightly and would not let anyone hold him or look at him. So the worker did not do her job. She just signed off that everything was fine for several of these visits. But then, as the weeks progressed, excuses started coming. Oh, well, our car broke down. Oh, well, my dad had a heart attack. I couldn't look. I'm still out of town. My dad still has a heart attack. Look, I can't be there. Finally, to the point where technically Dylan is still in the custody of Children's Services. They declare him kidnapped. And they go ahead and take Daniel Jr., who is still going to school, albeit, you know, sometimes in and out. They decide to see Daniel Jr. at school, take him and place him in protective custody because they can't find baby Dylan. They have no idea where the parents are, and they want baby Dylan found. So, you know, after not answering any of Department of Human Services calls, but thus far, you know, playing phone tag with this woman, Daniel angry calls when Daniel Jr. does not get off the bus. How dare you take my child? And the social worker basically says, you have, you know, this such and such a time to produce Dylan. You are here for kidnapping. Well, 72 hours, like Lori Vallow, pass, no Dylan. It basically becomes a SWAT thing. Think hillbilly fortress, you know, dog crates, hunting, milk crates, you know, propane tank, four-wheelers, you know, car carcasses all around. Just just trashy. Like, there's rural living, and then there's just trashy. This is just trashy. This is just trash, okay? There's a difference. So Jessica comes out in like a sleep t-shirt and like her underpants because she apparently didn't have a wife beater with a freaking spaghetti stain. It was laundry day, I guess. Who knows? And she's like, "What are y'all doing here? Dylan was in, foster care. Y'all took him." And, they're like, "Well, that's ridiculous because we are here. We're the ones who put out the Amber Alert. That's not the truth." And, well, Daniel turned tail and ran. And the standoff, I think, lasted about 40, 20 some kind of hours, and then they finally both got in. Well, the nicest detective ever tried to talk to Daniel for a couple hours, and Daniel gave them the runaround. First, he said, "I don't know what you're talking about." And he was dope sick and, rolling on the floor and kept asking about his dogs. In fact, he and Jessica spent more time asking about the welfare and care of their dogs than they ever did Dylan or their son, Daniel Jr. Now, here's where we get to some utter ridiculous bullshit. And excuse my French. Daniel decides to break down, and he gets to a crying and a tearfulness, and he claims, "Y'all, I shit you not, you're my favorite turds. It was a fearful tragedy. In order to keep the bad demons away from baby Dylan, we keep a sun catcher, as you do, next to his bassinet. And boy is just so strong. He done pulled the sun catcher down, and somehow it just unalived him." Now, you guys might not understand why I am just beyond grossed out by this, because baby Dylan, in addition to being less than his birth weight at the time of his death, had multiple skull fractures and broken ribs, a left leg fracture, and a left arm fracture. And the parents seriously tried to say that he got it from a GD dream catcher. Now, I may be blonde under all this, but the detectives were not buying that. And Daniel told them that they had, found him, and they were just so worried and just so, saddened that they panicked and, buried him somewhere on the property. Now, uh, they took Daniel, at his word and went to the property, didn't find anything. And the female detective, got the idea that they were kind of just giving him the runaround. They were kind of just giving her the runaround. So she let, and this is fairly unusual, but she let Daniel and Jessica go into the same room and talk about their charges and things like that. And these two mental giants, forgetting that this was an interrogation room and there might be recording devices still on in both these rooms, were like, "I didn't tell them the real place. Yeah, I done lied to them and told them the wrong place." And then they were like, "Yeah, but uh "What about our dogs? And it's cold in here, and oh my gosh, I didn't even get, like, good food, and it was cold in here." Not one daggone word about the baby. Now, this is and I just realized I didn't put an E in there, so let me toot, bloop. This was the parents' choice of resting place for their child. Two milk crates, zip tied together, their son in there, covered in blankets, then covered in plastic wrap, then covered in padlocks, then thrown down a well, and not like a wishing well, but like a sinkhole well where, basically a farmer had drilled for fresh water, I guess for cattle or something. I don't know. I'm close to farmers. I am not myself a farm. I have unalived more plants than look, I may have enemies on the plant side, okay? But that is and they basically put him down the well. So the detective comes back in and basically tells Daniel the jig is up, and he, in fact, takes them to the well, and it's a miracle that they got baby Dylan out so he could be laid to rest properly after the trial because uh, they couldn't pump the well fast enough to get the ground table to get this out, and they didn't have a boom long enough, and they didn't I mean, the boom wasn't long enough, so they basically tied a bunch of, oh gosh, like straps together and kinda went fishing, and they were able to get this casket, if you could call it that, out. And this is Lady Dragon Lawyer. I'm gonna have to find out her name. I've just always called her Lady Dragon. I love this, prosecutor. She is sh this is part of her closing statement. This, I think, is part of maybe the most powerful thing that she does, and I think this is where I'll go ahead and maybe start talking about what I find interesting in the trial. So this does go to trial. Obviously, these two are charged with murder and grossness and being terrible effing human beings that should have been sent to Snake Island or the center of the sun, like post haste, having to listen to Daryl Brooks, on repeat all day or just sit next to him babbling all day. What that would be the worst possible punishment for anyone ever. Look, I'm just saying. This trial is interesting because Jessica and Daniel have different defense teams. Jessica intends to take the entire blame for Dylan's death, making Daniel only responsible as an accessory after the fact. Now, prosecutors buy that not at all, because how could a grown man not notice, you know, his wife basically hurting the heck out of a baby in his care? How he admits to having dreams in his confession to the police of Jessica, doing bad things to the baby, or Jessica demanding certain illicit substances because the baby is being a jerk, in her words, and she's going to lose it if she doesn't have X, Y, and Z. So if he gets her X, Y, and Z, she won't hurt anyone. Uh, and then he tries to deny that. But his 14-year-old son will say, yeah, I saw Dylan with a big bruise on his head, and then I never saw Dylan again. So this trial is interesting for that aspect. I think fireworks will come when you see the prosecutor uh, cross-examine Jessica. Jessica did not realize that she had to get cross-examined. I don't know what kind of intellect we're working with here. I know she was a nurse, I don't know how much that she fried with drugs, but, she thought that she could just say her piece and then, like, not speak when the she did not realize that she was going to get cross-examined. Uh, and lady lawyer is having not one damned bit of her pity me attitude. She is 100% full on empress of the pettyverse, and we are all there for it because this woman is trash. The other part I think is interesting is you see the prosecutors really get irritated with the Department of Human Services, and it really shows the gaps and where they drop the ball, and the state is not holding back on them at all. You can definitely see her disgust, her irritation with that. Also, you see Andrea Bowling, the foster mother, is interesting. I do like the defense. I think the defense trying to bring in the part about Ohio having this great big opioid epidemic is very interesting. Uh, Look, you have to play the cards that you're given, and these clients were not likable. They were not likable. You were not gonna make them as David said, you have to have a monster, and you can try to make drug addiction the monster in this case, but these 2 were so supremely unlikable, the crime was so supremely heinous that I don't know that you could have shifted that in any way. So the defense did try, and we will be rewatching. I am going to put this video up and then do the foster mother letter and then probably do opening statements tomorrow. So, we'll just do like, morning section, afternoon section, trying to figure out a schedule. You know, kids aren't back to school yet. This is all flippery floppery. So that's kind of a, a little 30-minute kind of snippet of what the case is about. Look, I understand it's a kid case. If this is going to be too much for you, do not in any way feel bad about saying, Mo, this is a skip it case for me. Follow your dream, climb every mountain, but this is a mountain I'm going to bypass. I totally get it. Do what's good for you. Be kind to yourself. This is a brand new year. You know, Say no to what you need to say no to be kind to yourself. I will see you guys in a little bit. Um, Look, this is my first thing like this. Feedback, criticisms, whatever you guys, give me some ideas. This is my first time doing this kind of thing, without the whiteboard behind me. So I have tried something new this year already. Yay! Have a wonderful day. I will see you in a little bit. Bye, guys.